the empath. The empath is an interesting part of oneself. Some people are more empathic than others. And when we talk about empathy, there's this sense of connecting with somebody, feeling someone's emotions, connecting with them through a feeling state rather than just a thinking state. Working in this line of work in the industry, the health industry, and being a nurse and a mental health nurse and working with people in psychological distress and being very, very unwell at particular times. It's an interesting space to sit because I can easily pick up on people's emotions and feelings, and even working in the coaching space, it's quite easy to feel where somebody is within their lives. So recently I've been working with a lot of people who are actually empaths themselves, and it's a wonderful gift. However, it can be a great burden. And what I find is that people who are empaths, who don't necessarily know how to create boundaries and protect themselves, in a sense, can become quite overwhelmed through their empathic nature and taking on other people's stuff. So this video, I really wanted to talk about empathy, the empath, and how the empath can protect themselves, look after themselves, care for themselves in such a way that they then don't become burnt out and suffer compassion fatigue, but also start to lose that sense of self, of who they are as well. Because empaths will pick up a lot of other people's emotions and feeling states and moods, and it will impact them in such a way that they're not too sure if it's their stuff or it's other people's stuff. So yeah. So I had a beautiful conversation with a good friend of mine who is an empath, and this person was having troubles in trying to work out what was theirs and what was other people's. And this was the conversation and the content that I then shared with this person. And this is what I've also learnt within myself too. So with the empath and the person with an empathic nature, they will pick up other people's energies, moods, states, feelings. And sometimes they will feel them automatically and have a sense of where that person is. Sometimes they'll just feel them within themselves, and they'll feel that within themselves, and they're not too sure if it's something of their own or if it's something of someone else's. So the challenge and the burden that the empath faces is a situation which really comes down to a evolutionary psychological process called the righting reflex. Now, the righting reflex is a really, really interesting way of understanding human behaviour. And the righting reflex suggests that we do not like to see other people in discomfort, and we do not like to see other people suffering. So whenever we see someone suffering, we naturally want to decrease their burden. We naturally want to decrease their suffering, because their suffering, their discomfort actually creates discomfort within us. Now, it can create that discomfort within us and in our own suffering through the empathic process. As we notice this stuff arising within us, as we notice this stuff arising within others, we naturally want to decrease their discomfort. And by decreasing their discomfort, it starts to then decrease our discomfort. So, it's a symbiotic process, but there is an agenda that's actually related to it. However, what can happen is that if I decrease someone else's discomfort, and that person hasn't allowed themselves to sit with that discomfort enough to come to a learning of it, learning of what the discomfort represents, then there's the potential that I actually take away someone's learning, because there's another concept called rupture and repair, and I've spoken about this before. So if you want to find out about that, I'll put a link to the rupture and repair video as well. So as people rupture, they have this discomfort, but the beautiful thing about rupture is that rupture actually creates resilience when you sit with your discomfort. And as you sit with your discomfort, you can learn through that discomfort, and then you have a repair process. Now, the repair process promotes trust. So if somebody is suffering or they're in discomfort, and I take away their discomfort and I take away their suffering, I'm also taking away their ability to learn about themselves, their ability to create resilience, their ability to trust in themselves. Now, as I take away their discomfort, it initially alleviates my discomfort. However, in taking away their discomfort, I sometimes then may hold on to their discomfort. So then everyone else's discomfort around me then becomes mine. And then I get overwhelmed, and then I start to get burnt out. And then what I also then do, and this is a common trait of the empath, is that they will take on other people's stuff, and then they will expect other people to take on their stuff. And when other people don't take on their stuff, they then start to resent other people. Now, the resentment, so whenever you resent others, I would then ask you to bring it back to self and then consider, how am I resenting myself? And usually the reason why we resent ourselves is we continue to give ourselves to others. And so we go, oh, I've done that again. I've compromised my values again. I'm putting others before me. Why can't others do that for me? Well, while I do that for others, what I'm actually doing there is I'm training them. I'm giving them permission for how they can treat me. So I can say, hey, don't worry about me. I'm not as important as you. And so then that's how then people treat you. So there's another concept that suggests that life relates to you in the way that you relate to yourself. So if you are not caring for self, if you are not respecting self, if you are not loving self, then how can you expect others to? Because in a sense, if you don't know how to love yourself, if somebody showed you love, you wouldn't really know what that would mean to you. Well, how do I know? And usually when people give you love or give you appreciation or pay you a compliment, we deflect, we project, we minimize, we ignore, we say, hey, that's not important, and we minimize it. So in essence, what I'm trying to say here is that sometimes we need to create some boundaries. Most times we need to create some boundaries. Sometimes we need to become aware of our stuff versus other people's stuff. Being the empath, it's a beautiful state to have, and it's a beautiful gift to have. However, we can become overwhelmed. So the idea then is, with the empath, is to notice someone else's stuff. And the way that we work with other people's stuff is that we show them compassion. And from a Buddhist perspective, when we talk about compassion, we detach with loving compassion. So it's not that I depersonalize, it's not that I become numb and void to you or anybody else. But what it is it's a process where I can say, I can see that you are suffering, I can see that you are in your own discomfort. However, that is your discomfort and that is your suffering. There is an opportunity for you to grow from that. I can recognize that within you, and I can walk alongside you, but I will not take your suffering as my own, because it's not my suffering. And your journey is your journey. Your lessons are your lessons. They are not my lessons. However, I can learn from the process of the interaction with you. So the antidote to becoming burnt out and having compassion fatigue is to show compassion to self, but also to show compassion to others. And show compassion to others by not taking on their stuff, by recognizing their stuff and walking alongside them, not walking in their shoes. Because as you walk in their shoes, you then take on their stuff, and you take on the other stuff of all of the other people around you, because the other people around you will recognize that you are the empath. And if you are inviting one person's stuff, you will then so invite other people's stuff. And as you invite other people's stuff, you then ultimately then become burnt out. And you start to resent others because no one's taken your stuff away from you. When really, it's not really your stuff. It was their stuff to begin with. Okay, so empathy, beautiful, wonderful skill, wonderful way of connecting with people. Compassion and empathy combined will allow you to be with people, allow you to sit with people, allow you to be with yourself, allow you to sit with yourself, and allow both of you to travel upon your own journey of learning of rupture and repair. And sometimes there's a parallel process that sits between the two, whereas there's learning. I can look at you and see the suffering that you're in, and I can then relate that to me, but I don't have to take on your stuff. I can be with you and I can walk alongside you, and I can help you with your own repair, but I am not the repairing process of your stuff. I'm the repairing process of my stuff. In saying that, I can also become the repair process of other people's stuff, but just don't take on all of their stuff. Okay? There's a lot in that. You might need to watch that a couple of times. But empathy, beautiful skill, just got to be aware of it, because you can become overwhelmed and you can receive a lot of compassion fatigue. Okay? Hope you got something out of that. All right, talk soon. Bye-bye.